everyone. Here's Jiawei speaking. So I'm a developer in the UI5 framework team. And today, together with my colleague Florian, we want to give you an insight about our new feature around UI5 routing and components. I think you heard already lots of keywords like routing, components in the previous session, from the presentation, also from the question. So I still want to give you like a short introduction about what UI5 routing does. The UI5 routing is actually offers you a mechanism to control the application state based on the browser hash. So with UI5 routing, a router instance will be created automatically for each of the UI components once you have written routing configuration inside the manifest JSON of your component. So now we simply jump to one code example directly to have a look at how the routing configuration looks like. So here you see this is taken from an existing example application, which will be shown later in this session, but only the routing part. See here we have like routes defined, like with the name home route. And within the target section, we have like a target defined. And a route, with a route, you can define like a pattern, which will be used to match against the browser hash. And with the target, you can define like what you want to show onto the screen. For example, here we have like a sub-UI core MVC view here. And you can then connect this target to an existing route by assign this target option with the name of the target. That means once this route is matched against the browser hash, and this corresponding target will be shown onto the screen. So here you see that it fits perfectly to this MVC pattern inside UI5 because you can load a view. But for a larger scale application like what is demonstrated in the previous session, also mentioned several times in the previous sessions, I think it's a best practice to organize this bigger application into different components and to make each of the components have a reasonable size to be managed easily. Also, for another scenario, maybe you already have some applications, but you want to integrate them or reuse them in another bigger application where you want to reuse them to cover maybe a more complicated scenario, to avoid the user to switch between like different systems. Then you also need like to integrate like existing application into a new application. With that said, it was like highly requested from internally inside SAP, also from externally from the community, that we should make our routing to be extended with the ability to also load a component. And during the implementation of this new feature, we also received lots of collaboration and also support from the community. That's why I want to also use today the chance to say thank you, especially to Graham Robinson, who contributed the first version of the sample application, which will be demonstrated later on by my colleague Florian. And now we go to the next slide. And here you will see that we illustrate our routing configuration from another perspective. And at the very left side, from the top to the bottom, you see a root component. Within the component, you have a router. And you have then a route, which is then drawn into this rectangle with this blue border. And this is then will display this home target, which is shown with this reddish color here. It's called the target home. And what if you want to, after user interaction, to load another component, render it onto the screen? This was not possible with the old way, but now it's possible to define another type of the target. So which is also shown with this orange color. So this is a target code type component. You can then do the same way of connecting this one to a route. Like here we have the supplier route within this root component, which will then display this new target. And this new target represents actually another component which in turn can have another routing configuration, and also the router here, which is shown at this right side in this yellow rectangle. Here you see within this new, or we call it this nested component, there's also a router inside. And this router can have like its own route, which is connected to a target. And the target can be like a view target, can also be component target to have like a deeper nested scenario in your application if you need this one. So let's now go back to the routing configuration to see how you can define this. And within the manifest JSON of application, there's already a section designed for declaring further components. So it's called the component usages under the SAP UI5 option. And there you can simply define a new key, represents like the name of your component, and with the information like where the component can be loaded and the further settings for this component. Then you can simply refer to this component inside a target. So under the routing target section, and you then write the type inside the view, but component here. So you have then connect to this component usage by assigning the usage option with the supplier component, which is the name of this component usage. And you may already get the point that there is still something missing, right? That's why we want to go to the next slide. And in order to use this target or to let this target be shown to the screen, we need to define route. And this is also something we call like magic happens here. And within this new route, normally, so with the normal route, you simply assign the target option with the name, like directly with the string, which is the name of the target. But here, you need to have an object. Why? Why you have to do in this way? Because we need from you some additional information for this specific component type target. Because once this component is loaded, because it can also have its own routing inside, that means you have like multiple routers running at the same time. And if they react to the browser hash simultaneously, there will be a conflict. That's why we have to split the browser hash into different parts and give each of the components a dedicated part inside the browser hash to avoid conflicts between the routers. That's why we need a prefix, like a unique prefix from the application. And we use this prefix to split the browser hash into different parts. And after doing this, so UI5 routing will take everything for you, like when this router will be initialized. And once you navigate away from this one to maybe to a new route, and the router inside this component will also be stopped. So we take care of everything for you. But the only thing from your part you need to do is to define a prefix at the place where a type component target is used. So with this, everything defined here, we can simply use the same way for showing this target. Like here, we can use the nav2 method under the router by giving the name of a route. So here we give the name, the supplier route, which displays a component target. But what if you have some other requirement, like what is illustrated here? So within this supplier component, you may have like another route, which doesn't have an empty string like as the hash. Here we want to show a detailed information of a supplier. That's why if you don't give any further information to the nav2 method, so the route which has the empty pattern defined as the hash will be matched automatically. But what if you want to navigate to the detailed route directly once the supplier component is loaded and shown to the screen? And we also thought about this. So we extended our API, the nav2 method, with the third parameter. So within this parameter, you can simply specify the name of the target with the route and the parameter information inside this target, which represents a component. If you like, you can also load multiple targets within a route. If you have like multiple component targets, you can then give each of them the information about the route and parameter, simply like writing multiple keys within this third parameter. So with everything said, I will then pass to my colleague Florian, who will then show you a sample application we made for demonstrating this new feature. So Florian, take the stage.
Hello, everyone. Here's Florian speaking. So I have the honor today to present you a demo about this really interesting topic. And so I will share my screen, and now let's directly jump into it. So this is my, you see now the browser, and the best thing at the beginning, we pushed already the whole code which we show now directly to GitHub, so it's available here, and the link can be found also in the slides. And I hope you enjoy, because you can directly use it, you can clone it and work with it. And yeah, it's really interesting. This repo, as Jiawei already told you, it's based on the blog post which Graham Robinson wrote, and really thanks a lot again to him to make this as a starting point. And we take it, and yeah, we enhanced it, and we used it to bring the routing in with reusable component to its maximum. And therefore, yeah, let me show you what we have did. So this is the application, and this application is a we call it a shopping cart administration or shopping tool administration, which consists of a root component which contains some text, and we have also a little dummy or a diagram to illustrate which components are used and how they talk to each other. And the rest are 3 components. And so you can click on these menu items, and we colored a little bit the backgrounds of these components to showcase which components are used. So in that case, we have here a suppliers component, and they are giving an overview, a list of all the suppliers which we have in our shop. Then we have products containing all the products which we ship in our shop. It's colored blue. And then we have a category, so containing all the different product categories, and it's colored green. So every time in the sample app, it's not Fiori 3 compliant. It's only to showcase which component is actually displayed on the UI. So said that, you see we have 3 menu items, and we have then 3 subcomponents used. So how did it look? How it looks in the code? So switch the code. So this is a repository which we have. So it's a mono repository. We use the UI5 tooling together with Yarn to bring it all together. And our goal was to achieve a maximum isolation in development-wise to allow developers to use completely independent development of components. So the goal is that every component can be developed by separate developers, separate teams. They have in future also their own Git repositories, and in the end, all came together. And so we have this root component. That's the application. It's a well-known UI5 structure with the web app folder and with the manifest JSON. And then we have for every child component, we have for every topic component, how you can call it, we have another component. And at the moment, you have to structure these components not as an application. You have to structure them, these reuse components, as UI5 libraries. This is a topic which we will work on the next year to bring that more convenient for you. But at the moment, it's a UI5 library containing only the component as it is. The good thing is that every of these subcomponents have a UI5 YAML. It has a package JSON, and it can be deployed and tested completely independently. to showcase you that, I have prepared there the products component as a standalone version. So you see now here is the product component displayed. You see the list view with all the products, and you can click on that, and afterwards you get the detail view, which is part of this product component. If you have a look on that hash, you see that first it's the empty hash because it's a default pattern, and if you click on one of them, the hash changes to the detail pattern, which is associated to the detail view of this component. So let's have a look at the manifest JSON declaration. As Jiawei already taught, you don't have to do anything in these nested components. They are completely isolated. They can use routing, as you know already, with all this stuff, with optional parameters, also with titles in the target definition. So that's all well known. So here you don't have to do anything. So the interesting part happens in the root component. And in the root component, when we go there in the manifest JSON, we will have now look to this route section. And you see the route, the home route, it's simply the default route, and this home route, it's pointing to the home target, which is a view. So nothing new. But for the components, we have to define component-based targets. So in that case, the type is not view, it's component. And we only have to declare the usage of this component. And this is simply a pointer, which points to the UI5 usage section, where we simply declare them. And which namespace is used? Do we have any component-based settings, component data? Nothing special. That's also well known. So simply point to that. And afterwards, we can go to the routing section, to the routes, and add that route. So we add a pattern for that. And really important, the target property change. So before we had that the target was a string. Now it's an object. And the name property contains the name of the target. And then really important, the prefix. We have to prefix them to identify which parts of the hash are belonging to which components. And that's all. So when we switch to the UI again, to our home, to our application, let's start from the home app. And now let's switch to the products component. Now you see the products component is included into the UI, into our root component. You don't see there, it's not an iframe, it's included directly in the UI5 application in control tree. And if you click on one, you see again this product detail view. And now if you have a look on the hash, well, let's go back to see it. So this is now the products route, which comes from our root component. And because this list view is the empty pattern, so there's nothing more added to the hash. But if you click now to a route in the nested component which has a hash inside of it, the hash got enhanced. And it got enhanced with the prefix of this component, of this target, plus the hash which is coming from the detail view of the nested component. So that's really strong. It's a powerful feature, but we enhanced it a little bit more. You can also use inter-component navigation, plus you can decide if you want to use in-place navigation or inter-component navigation. So how it look like? If I click on now to the supplier to get an overview which suppliers are there, we switch now to the supplier component, and the supplier component contains now the actual supplier, and the supplier also contains a product component. And in that case, the hash is now enhanced with the supplier component plus the products component, which is prefixed with the hash of both. Said that, that's all. Try it out. Go to our repository, check it out, try it. We're really happy. Contribute make some enhancements. We are really looking forward to offer you the best experience to work with components and to structure also large applications for you. With that, open for questions.
Thank you very much, Florian and Jiawei. So we're having the question panel open, and the first question that got up is, the nested component should be started using the root mentioned in the parent component. Is that correct?
So I will take this question. This is correct. So in order to show this nested component, you need to get the router instance from the root component and call the nav tool with the route where this target is connected in order to show this component target to this one. But after that, you can then do navigation, which is triggered from the root component or inside the nested component. Both ways are possible. So they will result in the same thing at the end. The same application state, also the same browser hash.
All right, thank you very much, Jiawei. So next question would be if the latest LTS version 1.71 supports routing with components.
So we need to check this one. So for you, but you can find a very detailed information about how we implement the routing, this new routing feature from version to version, because we didn't release all of the feature within one version. We did it in an incremental way from 163, if I remember correctly, but there's not, the feature set is not complete. We have a blog post, which is linked in the slides. And you can, in the first paragraph of this blog post, we have very detailed timeline about this new feature to let you see which version you need in order to consume this new feature.
All right, thank you. And we have another question, which is, if one has semantic object, action to navigate between apps, why using routing for that?
So I'm not quite sure what this semantic object here means. I think it's maybe in a higher level library defined. So I cannot really answer the question for now, but I think we will take this away and we will then contact you directly. So.
Fine. All right, and then I think we have a last question, which is it possible to load component usages dynamically in the database and not hard-coded in manifest?
So you mean, I think what you mean is, I think you can add both component usage or the routing target, which represents a component dynamic. So you don't need to define them statically, because we also have like some application within SAP who approached us and asked for the similar feature request. So you can, I think the component usage is a very elegant way of like declaring a component. But there's another way of like not using the component usage within a component target inside routing. You can simply define the name and further information about your component target, and the target can also be loaded, which means you can call the add_target function on router and providing those kind of information during runtime and define the target before you navigate to it. So this is also possible for you to load like the nested component information dynamically during the runtime. So you don't need to define them statically, but if you can do this, I think it's better, because then you have a very good overview once some other developers look at the code. But if you have such a kind of requirement that those can only be inserted dynamically during the runtime, there is also API for you prepared.